Hello, welcome back to the most boring YouTube channel in history. This is Peter Highland, beekeeper extraordinaire. At least that's maybe what I'll be if I do this for another 10 years. I'm just wanted to give you guys a little update on things. Summer is just about done. It's just been a fantastically dry, hot August here in Portland, and I think the bees have done really well for themselves as a result. It's Sunday afternoon, and my kids are going back to school starting tomorrow, and just got a lot of things going on, which is good. But you can see here out front, the bees are clustering as they normally do late in the afternoon on Sunday. And what I've been doing for the last 3 days in a row is treating the bees with oxalic acid in the form of a long strip. It's called Mitaway is the name of the product. And it's the same product I used last year, but I did a couple things different this year. Number one is I'm about a month early this year doing it, and the reason for that is because I think I did it too late last year, and mites, the Varroa mites carry a disease that is really makes it hard for colonies to overwinter, and they look like tiny little, pinhead-sized dots basically that appear on the bottom tray, the drip tray at the bottom of the hive. So what I've been doing this year is that's where I put the oxalic acid. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up from the bottom. I haven't harvested any honey this season. If you come on over here, I'll give you a look on the back side. Had a bit of an ant infestation up in the top of the hive. If I take it all apart here, you'll see. And that's not all that uncommon to have that happen, at least in our hive. And so what I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago is I noticed bees were crawling, or not bees, I noticed ants were crawling up and down the hive, and they had nested in here and lots of eggs and stuff. So I yanked all of the previous shavings out, dusted it all off, put new shavings in, and they have stayed away since. And so that's good. And so this will allow, heat and moisture transfer out. It's kind of like the attic. So I don't even bother lifting that. There's no need to get in there. At this point, I'm not about harvesting any honey for consumption. I just want the bees to try to make it through the winter. So we're leaving them alone, taking the really hands-off approach that Warre himself had subscribed to. So if I go from the top down, as expected, this top super, you can see there's a lot of comb here that's got honey in it. It's impossible to know how far in that honey is, but don't have a scale or anything, but in the last 3 weeks, like, these have all been filled, the cells that are connected right to the plexiglass. And if we go down one more level, it's again, you can see indications where you have honey storage, and then also just where there's probably brood and maybe just a general hangout place for them. And then there's also, you can see the gaps here. It's kind of a reddish orange material that's called Propolis, and that's something that's a bit more sticky and gummy than beeswax, and they use that, they create that and use that to fill all the gaps. And so that's one reason why I haven't cracked the hive open, is because the hive is that much more, I guess, insulated from drafts and temperature spikes or temperature drops, and that's why I just don't want to open it unless I have to. So the very bottom super is the one that I added most recently, and it actually got built out with new comb within a matter of just a few weeks. And so all these new combs, you can see they're a lot lighter in color, and the new comb is what the queen prefers to lay in. And so there's probably, if there isn't brood here yet, there probably will be. And pretty soon, though, they're gonna, I'm guessing, as the nectar flows in, they're gonna stop reproducing and just work on sustaining themselves through the winter. And so the final piece down here at the bottom, the tray, and if I pull this out, you're gonna see the die-off of the mites has dropped significantly. So the first 2 days, when I had this oxalic acid Mitaway strip in, there were probably 10 times more of these little brown dead mites. And so
those are mites?
Those are mites, yeah. So I think I've knocked most of the population down. So what I've been doing every day, normally they recommend laying this in between supers, like in between, say, the lowest and the middle, but I need to open up the hive to do that. And right now, the hive's totally doing great. And so what I've figured is the fumes of the formic acid, which is essentially, formic acid is naturally produced by ants, for example. And so if you ever take an ant and you squish it, the weird smell that emanates from the ant is actually formic acid. And so you can see it's pretty dry. Normally, if this is really sticky and fresh, you'd want to handle it with gloves. And all I'm trying to do is expose fresh fumes to the bees. So now if you smell this, yeah, it's kind of like CO2. It kind of gets you in the nose. It's kind of nasty. And so what I do now, is I've just been getting in here every day, and I'll come in here and I'll just scrape off as much of this as I can. Sometimes I'll even use one of the edges of the viewer to try to create as clean a slate as I can, so that when I come to check out the hive on the next day, I have a good handle on how many more of these mite carcasses have fallen. And so far, it really does seem to be working.
Why didn't you do this the first year?
Well, I was all about, following the instructions to the letter, and I'm just trying to experiment and come up with my own technique based upon our site, because our site, I think, is really notoriously high moisture with not much air circulation, and so I think mold and excess moisture contributed to the colony's demise in the past 2 years. So here you can see I'm just taping this up, trying to just keep that fume inside going up through the hive.
Doesn't that lessen the airflow even more?
It does, but right now it's not a big deal. It's once the weather changes and we start getting, obviously shorter days, but regular rain again. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do for overwintering in terms of insulating, but this air gap here is new this year as well. In years past, we always just had the hive directly on the stump, and I think that moisture transfer was better or greater in the last 2 years. So I think a number of factors have changed, but so far they're doing great. So we'll give you guys an update maybe another month or so when the population has come down. And but I think the plan is to leave all 3 supers on throughout the winter, and hopefully there'll be enough food and enough thermal mass that they'll make it through, and we'll have just a kick-ass colony come springtime. Maybe get another hive going.
All right, so one last question.
Okay.
Do you think that gap underneath will insulate the hive to some degree, or do you think it's bad to have that off during the winter, because in the colder months, at least when it comes to plants, having a plant on the ground really thermally regulates it? So
yeah, that's a good question, and I think what I might do is put bricks under there or something that doesn't have the ability to absorb moisture, but can effectively keep air away. So if I could put bricks under there, I think that would be ideal.
Okay.
And I might just do that. So if you look over there behind you at those dahlias, there's some bumblebees getting nectar. You see over here as well, right? Like these guys, they're in the pea family. They have square, or the mint family have square branches. And yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes we see the bumblebees foraging on plants that the honeybees aren't. But it's a good sign when you got bumblebees around.
Yeah. All right.
So anyway, thanks. It's quite sticky. I can even smell the off-gassing of it just right now as I open this up. So on the one hand, I'm sure the bees don't like this, but it is good in that it reduces the concentration of the Varroa mite population, like really dramatically. And I'm really getting a big whiff of this now, trying my best to not inhale it. So there we go, that's one strip right there, just looks like a big old disgusting patty. I'm going to put this one here, and even just being so close to this now, I'm kind of trying to hold my breath because it is so incredibly potent. So I'm just trying to hold this flat so I can get as much of that out as possible. I'm just going to do that up like so. This guy's going to go in the trash. I'm going to zip lock that shut. Trying to squeeze as much air out of there as I can. Cover that up. I'm downwind of this, that's why it smells so bad. God, yikes. Really potent stuff. That reminds me of the smell you get around CO2, like in winemaking applications. This almost makes your nose prickle. And so there you can see is our bee activity out front. They're happy today. It's been about about 91 degrees, somewhat cloudy here in Portland with the wildfires out to the east of us. And so here's my little location where I slide in. What I thought might be interesting to do is to open up the supers here so you can get a read on the activity level. You can see the bees are just doing their thing. This is the newest comb, and in all likelihood where the brood is or is going to soon. You can see a lot of empty comb. And if we go up one level to the middle super, here you can see a nice void space with older comb and still lots of activity. And from here, and some honey filled, but not too much, in the little cells that are right abutting up against plexiglass. And then the upper super is the one that's by far and away the most full of honey, and here you can again see activity of bees tending to these, and with every day they're getting fuller and fuller looking. So my hope is that the same thing will happen in the middle as we go and back down. So what I thought would be interesting as I put this in, oh look, there's a yellow jacket. I hope he gets attacked soon. What I thought might be interesting is to just monitor the activity of the bees once this formic acid sheet goes in. I think they're going to really go nuts. We'll see. Just perfectly slides in there, and immediately it seems like, yeah, they are definitely responding to that in a way that looks like irritation or shock. I don't know. This looks really busy over here. It's probably just a real shock to their system. I'm sure it would be to mine. Hasn't made it up its way up through the upper supers yet, but I think we come out here tomorrow and look at this fresh installation, we're going to see a major die-off in Varroa. At least that's my hope. Yeah, they're probably kind of freaking out now because that is off-gassing in a big way. I'm going to go ahead and seal this up. First time I applied this, I had a nightmare that it killed all the bees. So hopefully let's just hope that it continues to be just that, a nightmare. And so yeah, that's where that's at. And yeah, wow, they are definitely going nuts on that. This one seems a little confused. It's trying to get in with its sisters, but it doesn't realize that that is a surface that is not to be broached by bees, at least not today. They're going to have to become a lot more industrious to figure out how to do that. I'm guessing if we were to go around to the front, once I put these other covers back on, we're going to see a lot more bees outside because they probably are like, what the hell's going on? And, well, I guess it isn't that much different now, is it? Yeah, they do seem to be more active here now. Yeah, that's definitely causing a stir. So hopefully they'll be able to tolerate that, but it's going to kill off a lot of Varroa mites, I think, in a very short amount of time. So we'll check in on them tomorrow.